The conference room fell silent as Day One activated the holographic display. Above the table, an image appeared of a massive warship, its hull scarred and broken, drifting through empty space. The representatives from 14 different species stared at the image with varying degrees of interest. Most had seen thousands of derelict ships in their careers. This was nothing new. Day One cleared his throat. He was a thin man, with dark circles under his eyes from too many sleepless nights in the archives. His hands trembled slightly as he gestured at the hologram. This ship belongs to a species called the Vrenkath. 200 years ago, they controlled 47 star systems across the eastern spiral arm. Velmora, the Thalaxian representative, shifted in her specialized seat. Her 6 limbs moved with natural grace as she leaned forward. Controlled? Past tense? I have never heard of this species. Exactly, Heejin said, standing beside Day One. She was sharper, more confident in her presentation. Her military background showed in her posture. The Vrenkath were a powerful empire. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Their military was considered unstoppable. And then, 200 years ago, they simply vanished from galactic affairs. A Vorvoth warrior named Kryn growled from his position at the back of the room. His scaled face showed skepticism. Species do not just vanish. They fall to plague, to war, to economic collapse. What happened to them? Day One and Heijin exchanged glances. This was the moment they had prepared for. Heijin nodded, and Day One changed the hologram. Now it showed a blue and green planet, beautiful and vibrant. Earth, Day One said softly. 200 years ago, the Vrenkath invaded Earth with a fleet of 300 warships. They appeared in our solar system without warning. They broadcast a simple message across all frequencies: surrender or be exterminated. The room remained quiet, but now the attention was absolute. Every species in the Galactic Council knew about Earth. Humanity had joined the Council 80 years ago, and in that time, they had become known as skilled diplomats, excellent traders, and surprisingly artistic people. But they were also known for being intensely private about their history. Heijin continued the story. The Vrenkath began orbital bombardment of our major cities. In the first week, they killed 4.2 billion humans. They destroyed our space stations, our orbital defenses, everything we had. Then they landed occupation forces on all 7 continents. Velmora's skin changed color, a sign of distress in her species. 4 billion? In 1 week? Yes, Day One confirmed. And then something strange happened. Earth went completely silent. For 3 months, there were no transmissions from our planet, no communications, no distress signals, no surrender broadcasts, nothing. The rest of humanity scattered across our colonies, waited, and heard only silence. He changed the hologram again. Now it showed a timeline with a 3-month gap marked in red. Every ship that approached Earth during those 3 months never reported back. The Vrenkath sent reinforcement fleets. None of them ever transmitted again after entering our solar system. It was as if Earth had become a black hole that swallowed everything. Kryn stood up, his massive frame casting shadows across the room. And then? Kryn stirred. Kryn stirred. Kryn stirred. Kryn stirred. Kryn stirred. Kryn stirred. And then, exactly 3 months and 4 days after the invasion began, Earth transmitted a single message to all our colonies. Heijin pressed a button, and a recording played. A calm human voice, speaking in perfect galactic common, filled the room. This is Earth Central Command. The situation has been resolved. All colonies may resume normal operations. The threat has been neutralized. The recording ended. The silence in the room was thick enough to cut. That is all? Velmora asked. No explanation? No details? Nothing. Day One confirmed. When our colony ships returned to Earth, they found the planet still standing. Our cities were damaged, but rebuilding. The human population had been reduced by half. But the survivors were already working on recovery. And of the Vrenkath, there was no sign. Not a single soldier, not a single ship. Nothing. They retreated, suggested a small reptilian ambassador from the back. That is what everyone assumed, Heejin said. But we kept digging through the archives. Day One and I have spent 5 years researching what really happened. And we found something that the Council needs to know. Day One brought up a new image. It showed a damaged Vrenkath ship, similar to the first one. We found this ship drifting at the edge of Council space 3 years ago. It had been abandoned for approximately 200 years. When we accessed its data cores, we found its final recordings. He played the audio. At first, there was only static. Then a voice came through, speaking in the clicking language of the Vrenkath. The translation appeared as text below the hologram. Fleet Command. This is Dreadnought Savage Glory. We are under attack. They followed us through the jump point. How did they follow us through the jump point? We are taking casualties. They are on the ship. They are inside the ship. How did they get inside? Requesting immediate assistance. They are in the engineering deck. They are not stopping. Retreat coordinates are compromised. They knew where we would go. How did they know? Emergency. Jump in 30 seconds. They are in the bridge corridor. They are cutting through the door. 20 seconds. 15 seconds. They are through. Oh, ancestors, they are not taking prisoners. They are not stopping. They are. The recording cut off with the sound of metal tearing and screaming. The conference room was absolutely silent now. Even Kryn had sat back down. His expression unreadable. Day One let the silence hang for a moment before speaking. We have found 17 more ships with similar recordings. All of them from the Vrenkath fleet that invaded Earth. All of them showing the same pattern. Retreat, pursuit, desperation, and then silence. But here is the important part, Heejin said, and her voice was grave. We activated our long-range sensors and expanded our search pattern. We were looking for any sign of the Vrenkath civilization. Any colonies, any ships, any outposts. She paused, making sure every representative was paying attention. We found them. At the very edge of known space, nearly 200 light-years from Earth, our sensors detected a small fleet of Vrenkath ships. They are still running. After 200 years, they are still fleeing. Velmora stood up slowly, her skin now a pale shade that indicated deep concern. Still fleeing? From what? Surely, after 2 centuries, Heejin met her eyes. From us. They are still fleeing from humanity. The implications hung in the air like a thundercloud. Kryn was the first to speak, his voice low and careful. What exactly did your species do during those 3 silent months? Day One looked at the Vorvath warrior and gave the only answer he had. We do not know. That information remains classified at the highest levels of Earth's government. But whatever happened, it was enough to make an empire of conquerors run for 200 years without stopping. The meeting dissolved into chaos as every representative began speaking at once. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere, passing through layers of security that would have made a military fortress jealous. Day One watched through the window as Sol came into view. Its skyline a mix of ancient preservation zones and modern towers. Beside him, Velmora was unusually quiet. Her skin a neutral gray that indicated deep thought. I cannot believe your government agreed to this, the Thalaxian diplomat said finally. Heejin smiled from her seat across the aisle. They did not agree easily. It took 3 weeks of negotiations. But the council vote was clear. They want answers, and Earth has decided it is time to give some. The shuttle landed in a restricted area of the city, surrounded by walls that seemed unnecessary for such a peaceful-looking place. A young woman in a dark uniform waited for them at the landing pad. Her name badge read G1, and her expression was professionally neutral. "Welcome back to Earth," G1 said, though her tone suggested they were anything but welcome. "Please follow me. There are rules you must understand before entering the preservation sector." As they walked through security checkpoints, G1 explained, "No recording devices. No unauthorized transmissions. No sharing of information without approval. The penalty for violation is immediate expulsion from Earth and permanent ban from returning." "Quite a strict," Velmora observed. G1's expression did not change. "The information you are about to access has been sealed for 200 years. We are making an exception because the Council demands it. But make no mistake, this is still our secret to keep or share as we choose." They entered a building that looked ancient on the outside but was clearly reinforced with modern security on the inside. An elderly man waited for them in a small, comfortable room filled with physical books and old-style computer terminals. He stood with difficulty, leaning on a cane. "I am Taeyang," he said. His voice was rough with age, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "I am one of the last living humans who remembers the silent months. I was 15 years old when the Vrenkoth came." Daewon felt his heart racing. This was it. This was the moment they would finally learn the truth. Taeyang sat down slowly and gestured for them to do the same. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Velmora said immediately. "What happened during those 3 months?" The old man was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was distant, as if he was seeing the past play out before his eyes. The Vrenkath thought they had won. After the first week of bombardment, they broadcast their victory across every channel. They showed images of our burning cities, our destroyed defenses. They landed occupation forces in every major population center. They thought we were broken. He paused to take a sip of water. They did not understand that they had made a mistake. You see, the Vrenkath were conquerors. They knew how to win battles, how to occupy territory, how to force surrender. But they did not understand what happens when you kill 4 billion people and then try to occupy the survivors. "What happens?" Daewon asked softly. Taeyang looked at him with eyes that had seen things no person should see. "The survivors stop being soldiers. They stop being an army. They become something else entirely. Way. 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 Way." He stood up, walking to a terminal on the wall. He entered a code, and a screen flickered to life, showing old footage. The quality was poor, but they could see Vrenkath soldiers in a human city, setting up checkpoints and barriers. For the first 3 days after they landed, we did nothing. We let them think they had won. We let them settle in, get comfortable, establish their routines, and then, on the 4th night, we began. The footage changed. Now it showed a Vrenkath patrol, walking through an empty street. Then the street was not empty anymore. Humans appeared from everywhere at once. Doorways, windows, sewers, rooftops. The footage cut out. "We did not fight a war," Taeyang said quietly. "We hunted. Every Vrenkath soldier who set foot on Earth became prey. We used every advantage we had. We knew our cities, our buildings, our terrain. They did not. We could hide in places their scanners could not detect. We could move through passages they did not know existed. But they had superior weapons, superior armor," Velmora protested. Taeyang smiled. But there was no humor in it. Weapons do not matter when the enemy is standing behind you in the dark. Armor does not help when you are alone and surrounded. The Vrenkath soldiers began to disappear, one by one, patrol by patrol, outpost by outpost. They would send reinforcements, and those would disappear too. The old man sat back down, his expression haunted. After 2 weeks, the Vrenkath pulled all their ground forces back to fortified positions. They thought they could wait us out. But we did not let them wait. We cut their supply lines, destroyed their communication equipment, poisoned their water supplies, sabotaged their vehicles. We made every single day on Earth a nightmare for them. Hai-Jin leaned forward. But what about their fleet in orbit? Ah, yes, the fleet. Taeyang pulled up more files. That was when we learned something interesting about the Vren Kath. Their ships required constant maintenance and supply runs. They needed crew rotations and rest periods. And they were not expecting guerrilla warfare from a species they thought they had defeated. He showed them footage of humans in captured Vrenkath armor, boarding a transport shuttle. We captured their equipment, their weapons, their uniforms. We learned their language, their protocols, their security codes. And then we used all of that to infiltrate their ships, not to capture them, to destroy them. The screen showed a massive explosion in orbit. One by one, their fleet began to experience catastrophic failures. Life support malfunctions, engine explosions, navigation errors that sent ships into each other or into Earth's atmosphere. The Vrenkath could not understand what was happening. How could a defeated species be destroying their fleet? Velmora's skin had turned almost white. This is impossible. The coordination required, the skill, the absolute ruthlessness. Ruthlessness, Taeyang repeated the word slowly. Yes, that is the right word. You must understand. We had watched 4 billion of our people die in a single week. 4 billion. Every survivor had lost someone. Family, friends, neighbors, lovers. Every single human on Earth had a reason to fight. And when an entire species decides that revenge is more important than survival, they become very, very dangerous. G1, who had been standing quietly by the door, spoke up. The Vrenkath finally understood this in the 3rd month. Their occupation was failing. Their fleet was being destroyed. Their soldiers were dying faster than they could be replaced. So, they made a decision. They would retreat, regroup, and come back with overwhelming force. Taeyang nodded. But we were ready for that too. When their remaining ships tried to leave Earth's orbit, we were waiting. Some of us had already infiltrated those ships. Others had sabotaged their jump drives. Still, others had obtained the coordinates of where they were planning to retreat to. He pulled up a star map showing dozens of red dots scattered across space. When the Vrenkath fleet jumped away from Earth, we followed them. Not with a fleet of our own. We did not have one anymore. We followed them in small groups, in captured ships, in secret. And when they reached their fallback positions, we were already there. Daewon stared at the map in horror. You pursued them. We did more than pursue them, Taeyang said. We made a decision as a species. Every Vrenkath who had participated in the invasion of Earth would be held accountable. Every single one. It did not matter where they ran, how far they went, how well they hid. We would find them. He closed the star map and looked at each of them in turn. That is what happened during the silent months. We mourned our dead. We buried our children. And we made a promise. Never again would anyone attack Earth and walk away. The Vrenkath thought they were conquerors. They learned they were prey. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Velmora asked the question they were all thinking. Are you still hunting them? Taeyang looked at G1, who nodded slightly. Yes, the old man said simply. 200 years later, we are still keeping that promise. The Meridian was not a military vessel, but it was built tough enough to survive in the deep frontier regions where help was days or weeks away. Captain Sung Ho ran a tight ship, and his crew knew better than to question orders. When the Council investigation team came aboard requesting transport to the edge of known space, he simply nodded and plotted the course. Daewon found the captain in the observation deck 3 days into their journey. Sung Ho was staring out at the stars, a cup of tea cooling in his hand. You were there, Daewon said. It was not a question. Sung Ho did not turn around. During the silent months? Yes. I was 12 years old. Old enough to remember everything. Taeyang told us what happened on Earth. But he did not tell us what happened after. What has been happening for the past 200 years. The captain finally looked at him. His face was weathered, marked with scars that could only come from combat. What do you think has been happening? Before Day One could answer, an alarm sounded. Sung-ho moved quickly to the bridge, with Day One following. Velmora and Hee-jin were already there, along with the tactical officer, a woman named Bo-ra, who rarely spoke but watched everything with cold, calculating eyes. Report, Sung-ho ordered. We are picking up a distress beacon, Bo-ra said, her fingers dancing across her console. Vren Kath signature. Distance: 40,000 kilometers. It appears to be a colony ship. Heavily damaged. Velmora stood up immediately. We must render assistance. Galactic law requires. Galactic law is complicated when it comes to the Vrenkath, Bo-ra interrupted smoothly. They are not members of the Council. They have no official diplomatic status. Technically, they do not exist. They exist enough to send a distress signal, Velmora insisted. Captain, you must investigate. Sung-ho looked at Bo-ra, and something unspoken passed between them. Finally, he nodded. Helm, intercept course. But we approach carefully. The Vrenkath ship was massive, designed to carry thousands of colonists across the vast distances between stars. But it was dying. Hull breaches scarred its surface, and its engines were dark and cold. As the meridian drew closer, they could see that many of its sections were completely destroyed. Life signs? Sung-ho asked. Detecting approximately 300 individuals, Bo-ra reported. Mostly in the central habitation section. That area still has life support, but it is failing. Velmora looked at the captain. We have to help them. Do we? Bo-ra asked quietly. Her tone was not cruel, just genuinely curious. The Thalaxian diplomat's skin flushed with anger. They are living beings in distress. What kind of civilization would we be if we left them to die? Coming. Sung-ho made his decision. Prepare a boarding team. We will offer assistance. But everyone stays armed and alert. The boarding party consisted of Sung-ho, Bo-ra, Day One, Hye-jin, and Velmora. Along with 4 security officers, they crossed through the docking tube into the Vrenkath ship, and immediately the difference in atmosphere was noticeable. It was cold, much colder than it should be. The lights were dim and flickering. They found the survivors in the main habitation section. 300 Vrenkath, but not the warriors they had expected. These were mostly elderly individuals and children, along with a handful of adults who looked exhausted and defeated. They shrank back when the humans entered, fear evident in their body language. An elderly Vrenkath stepped forward slowly. He was missing one of his lower arms, and his carapace was cracked with age. I am Veshkar, he said in heavily accented Galactic Common. Please, we mean no harm. We are just trying to survive. Velmora moved forward, her diplomatic training taking over. We received your distress signal. We can offer assistance. Medical supplies. Repairs. Why? Veshkar interrupted. Why would you help us? His eyes fixed on Sung-ho and Bo-ra. Why would humans help us? The question hung in the air. Daewon saw Bo-ra's hand move slightly closer to her weapon. An instinctive reaction. Sung-ho spoke calmly. Because we are not monsters, tell me, how long have you been running? Veshkar's body sagged. 200 years. My grandfather was a ship engineer during the invasion of Earth. He was not a warrior, not a soldier, just an engineer keeping the life support running. But when the fleet retreated, he came with them. He spent his entire life running. My father was born during the flight, and he spent his entire life running. I was born during the flight. And now, my grandchildren are born during the flight. He gestured at the children huddled in the corner. We have never stopped running. We cannot stop. Every time we try to settle somewhere, Every time we think we have found a safe place, you find us. Not armies, not fleets, just small teams. Sometimes just one or two humans. They appear without warning. They destroy our infrastructure, our ships, our hope, and then they disappear. Heejin stepped forward. How many times has this happened? 17 times. Veshkar said. In 200 years, we have tried to settle 17 times. The longest we managed to stay in one place was 8 years. That was on a remote ice world in an uncharted system. We thought we were safe. We thought you could not possibly find us there. But we did, Bora said. It was not a question. You did. 2 humans arrived in a small scout ship. They disabled our mining equipment, sabotaged our fusion reactor, and destroyed our communication array. Then they left. They did not kill anyone. They just made sure we could not stay. Day 1 felt sick. Why? Why continue the pursuit for so long? Veshkar looked at him with eyes that held centuries of exhaustion. Because we attacked Earth. Because we killed billions of your people. Because your species made a decision 200 years ago, and you have never wavered from it. Bora moved to a console and began accessing the ship's logs. Captain, you should see this. Sung-ho joined her, and his expression darkened as he read. These logs show every settlement attempt, every location, every date, every time they were found. He looked at Veshkar. Some of these locations are not in any database. They are in unexplored regions of space. How did we find you? We have asked ourselves that question for 2 centuries, Veshkar said bitterly. We have changed our ship signatures. We have used different languages. We have hidden on worlds that do not support human life. It does not matter. You always find us. It is as if your entire species has dedicated itself to making sure we never rest. Not our entire species, Bora corrected quietly. Just some of us. She turned to face the group, and for the first time, Day 1 saw something in her eyes that he had not noticed before. A cold, absolute certainty. I am part of the Remembrance, Bora said. It is not an official organization. It has no government backing, no military support. It is just humans who have chosen to dedicate their lives to fulfilling the promise we made 200 years ago. What promise? Velmora demanded. That every Vrenkath who participated in the invasion of Earth would be accounted for. Every ship crew member, every soldier, every officer, every engineer who kept the ships running, every logistical support personnel who made the invasion possible. All of them. Sung-ho nodded slowly. She is telling the truth. I am part of it too. We are scattered across human space, working normal jobs, living normal lives. But we share information, we track movements, we follow leads. And when we find a settlement of Vrenkath, who were part of the invasion force, we make sure they cannot stay. Day 1 looked at the frightened faces of the Vrenkath children. But these children were not part of the invasion. They were not even born yet. Day 1. No, Sung-ho agreed. But their ancestors were. And until the last member of that invasion force is accounted for, we will not stop. Veshkar laughed, a broken, defeated sound. Accounted for. Such a gentle phrase for what you do to us. We have not killed you, Bora pointed out. We could have. At any point in the last 200 years, we could have simply destroyed your ships, eliminated your populations, but we have not. We have only ensured that you cannot settle, cannot rebuild, cannot forget what you did. You have made us eternal refugees, Veshkar said. No one had an answer for that. Finally, Velmora spoke. How many are left? How many of the original invasion force are still alive? Bora checked her datapad. According to our records, 3. 3 command-level officers who were directly responsible for ordering the bombardment of Earth. We know where 2 of them are. We are searching for the third. And when you find them? Heejin asked. Then the pursuit ends, Sung Ho said simply. That was always the deal. When the last one is accounted for, the remembrance will dissolve, and the Vrenkath will finally be free to settle wherever they choose. Veshkar looked at the humans with an expression that mixed hope and disbelief. We do, Bo-Ra confirmed. We are not interested in eternal vengeance. We want justice. Once it is served, we will let you go. The old Vrenkath was quiet for a long time. Then he straightened up, as much as his aged body would allow. The third one you are looking for. I know where he is. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recent history. Every species had sent their highest-ranking representatives, and the chamber was filled to capacity. Security was tight, with armed guards from a dozen different species standing watch. The tension in the room was thick enough to taste. Velmora sat in her designated seat, her skin flickering through colors that betrayed her emotional state. She had barely slept since returning from the Vrenkath colony ship. The information they had gathered, the revelations about the remembrance, the scope of humanity's 200-year pursuit had shaken her understanding of the galaxy. The human ambassador, Yun So, entered the chamber with quiet dignity. She was a small woman, elegantly dressed, with gray hair and a calm expression that gave nothing away. She took her seat without fanfare and waited for the session to begin. The council speaker, a towering crystalline being named Thexira, called the session to order. The chamber fell silent immediately. We are here to address a matter of grave concern, Thexira announced, their voice resonating through the chamber like crystal chimes. It has come to the Council's attention that humanity has been conducting an unauthorized military campaign for the past 2 centuries. Ambassador Yunseo, you have been called to answer for this. Yunseo stood gracefully. I am prepared to answer any questions the Council may have. Kryn, the Vorvoth warrior, was the first to speak. The investigators have presented evidence that suggests humanity has been systematically hunting members of the Vrenkath species for 200 years. Is this true? Yes, Yunso replied simply. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions, demanded explanations, and called for sanctions. Thexira had to restore order 3 times before the chamber finally quieted. You admit to this campaign? Thexira asked, their tone indicating shock. I do. The Vrenkath invaded Earth 200 years ago. They killed 4.2 billion of our people in the first week of their attack. In response, humanity made a collective decision to ensure that every individual who participated in that invasion would be held accountable. A small reptilian delegate stood up, their voice trembling with anger. Accountable? You have turned an entire species into eternal refugees. You have hunted them across the galaxy for 2 centuries. This is not justice. This is genocide. We have killed no one, Yunseo corrected calmly. We have disrupted their settlements. Yes. We have prevented them from establishing permanent colonies, but we have not engaged in mass killing. We have not attacked civilian populations, and we have not expanded this campaign beyond the specific individuals who participated in the invasion of Earth. That is a distinction without a difference, Velmora said, standing up. She felt conflicted, torn between her diplomatic training and the memory of those frightened Vrenkath children. You have condemned them to an existence of endless flight. Many have died from the stress, from the constant relocation, from the inability to access proper medical care or establish stable communities. Yunseo looked at the Thalaxian diplomat with eyes that held deep sadness. 4.2 billion people died in a single week. They did not have the option of flight. They did not have the option of relocation. They simply died. The chamber fell silent again. Let me provide context that the council was never given, Yunseo continued. When the Vrenkath invaded, they broadcast their attack across all frequencies. They wanted the galaxy to see what happened when you resisted them. They showed images of our cities burning, our people dying. They laughed as they described how weak we were. She pulled up a holographic display showing archived footage. The council members watched in horror as Vrenkath commanders boasted about their victory, showed piles of human bodies, and discussed how they would enslave the survivors. After the first week of bombardment, they landed occupation forces. They set up processing centers where they sorted the survivors. The strong would be slaves. The weak would be eliminated. Children below a certain age were considered useless and were to be terminated immediately. The footage showed exactly that. Even the most hardened warriors in the chamber looked away. This was not a military conquest, Yunseo said quietly. This was attempted genocide. They intended to exterminate or enslave our entire species. And when we fought back, when we turned the tables and defeated them, they ran. They did not surrender. They did not seek peace. They simply fled and hoped we would forget. But you did not forget, Thexira observed. We did not forget. We could not forget. 4.2 billion names. 4.2 billion people who would never see another sunrise, never laugh again, never hold their children. How could we forget that? Kryn stood again, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. I understand the desire for vengeance. Every warrior does. But 200 years? At what point does justice become obsession? A holographic image appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a human man in military uniform, appearing via remote transmission. Yunseo introduced him. This is Commander Kyung-min of the Earth Silent Fleet. I have asked him to join us today to provide additional information. Kyung-min saluted the council. Honored members, I am here to provide transparency about Operation Long Memory, the official name for what you call our pursuit of the Vrenkath. He brought up data displays showing meticulous records. The original Vrenkath invasion force consisted of 850 command-level officers who were directly responsible for planning and executing the attack on Earth. Below them were thousands of soldiers, crew members, and support personnel. We made a decision to focus our efforts on the 850 commanders. The display showed a list of names, most of them marked with dates and locations. Over the past 200 years, we have tracked down and documented 847 of these individuals. Most died of natural causes while we were tracking them. Some surrendered to human authorities and provided testimony about the invasion. A handful resisted and were killed in self-defense. But the majority simply lived out their lives while we watched and recorded. Recorded what? Velmora asked. Their confessions, their testimonies, their acknowledgement of what they had done. We wanted the historical record to be complete. We wanted every victim's death to be accounted for, every crime to be documented. And the remaining 3? Thexira asked. We know the location of all 3. They are the highest-ranking officers from the invasion. They gave the orders for the initial bombardment. They authorized the killing of children. They planned the enslavement of survivors. Kyung-min's expression hardened. These 3 have actively evaded us for 2 centuries. They have never expressed remorse, never acknowledged their crimes, never sought peace. Yunseo took over. Earth's position is simple. We will continue to pursue these 3 individuals until they are brought to justice. Once that is accomplished, Operation Long Memory will end, and the Vrenkath people will be free to settle wherever they choose. You cannot decide the fate of an entire species based on the actions of 3 individuals, a delegate protested. We are not deciding the fate of the species, Yunseo corrected. We are seeking justice for our dead. The Vrenkath are free to live, to build communities, to thrive. We have never prevented that. We have only prevented the specific individuals who attacked us from escaping accountability. Day 1, watching from the gallery, finally understood. It was not about revenge. It had never been about revenge. It was about memory. About refusing to let 4 billion deaths be forgotten. About insisting that actions had consequences, even 200 years later. He-jin leaned close to him and whispered, "The council is going to vote." They are going to try to force us to stop. She was right. Thexira called for order and announced a vote. The question before the council: should we demand that Earth cease all pursuit of Vrenkath individuals and provide sanctuary to those currently fleeing? The vote began. Species after species cast their votes, and the chamber's display showed the tally. Day One watched in fascination as the numbers climbed. Abstentions were high, very high. Many species were clearly uncomfortable taking a side. When the vote concluded, the result was a stalemate. Not enough votes to pass the measure, but not enough to reject it either. Kryn stood and addressed the chamber. I abstained from the vote, and I will tell you why. My species has a saying: the predator that forgets becomes prey. Humanity has shown us what happens when you attack a species that refuses to forget. They have not broken galactic law. They have not attacked council members. They have not expanded their territory or threatened anyone beyond those who attacked them first. He looked directly at Yunso. I do not approve of your methods. I think 200 years is excessive. But I understand your reasoning, and I will not stand in your way. Other representatives nodded slowly. The message was clear. The council would not interfere. Velmora felt a deep sadness settle over her. Yuncio met her eyes. Perhaps it sends a message that attacking peaceful species has consequences that last longer than one generation. The choice is yours to interpret. The session ended without resolution, but with understanding. Earth would continue its pursuit. The 3 remaining Vrenkoth commanders would be found, and the galaxy would remember that humanity, for all their art and diplomacy and trade, never forgot their dead. As Yuncio left the chamber, Day One heard her whisper something to Kyungmin. How long until we find the last 3? Days, Kyungmin replied. The Vrenkoth elder gave us coordinates. It is almost over. Kyungmin replied. It is almost over. The remote world had no name in any official database. It was simply listed as System 447b, a cold planet orbiting a dying star at the edge of mapped space. The meridian dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge, and immediately their sensors picked up signs of settlement. Single habitat dome, Bo-Ra reported from her station. Population approximately 50 individuals. Minimal power signature. They are trying to stay hidden. Sung-Ho studied the readouts carefully. Any defenses? None detected. They are not expecting company. Velmora had insisted on joining them for this final mission, despite Yunseo's warnings that it might be dangerous. Daewon and Heejin were there too, representing the council's interests. They all understood this was the end of something that had lasted 2 centuries. 3 targets confirmed on the surface, Bo-Ra continued. Biosignatures match our records. These are the last 3 commanders from the original invasion force. Sung-Ho stood up. Prepare a shuttle. G1. You are with me. Bo-Ra. You have the ship. G1 had arrived on the Meridian 2 days ago, carrying official authorization from Earth. She was the one who would make the formal arrest. Day One noticed she looked nervous, which was unusual for the normally composed security officer. This is my first time, G1 admitted as they boarded the shuttle. I joined the Remembrance 5 years ago, but I have never actually been present for a confrontation. Why did you join? Velmora asked gently. G1 was quiet for a moment. My great-great-great-grandmother was killed in the bombardment. She was a teacher. She died protecting her students when the school was hit. I grew up hearing stories about her. About how she loved her work. How she would stay late to help struggling students. How she always had candy in her desk drawer. She looked out the shuttle window at the approaching planet. I never got to meet her. None of my family did. She died 200 years ago. But we still tell stories about her. We still remember her favorite color, her favorite food, the songs she used to sing. And I thought, if we can remember her after all this time, Then we can remember to seek justice for her. The shuttle landed a kilometer from the habitat dome. Sung Ho insisted on approaching on foot, giving the Vrenkath occupants time to see them coming. He did not want this to end in violence. As they walked across the frozen landscape, Daewon could see the habitat dome more clearly. It was old, patched in multiple places, and looked like it had been assembled from salvaged parts. This was not a thriving community. This was barely survival. They reached the dome's entrance, and Sung Ho activated the communication panel. "This is Captain Sung Ho of the Earth vessel Meridian. We are here to speak with the leadership of this settlement. Please respond." For a long moment, there was silence. Then a voice crackled over the speaker, old and tired. "We know why you are here. We have always known this day would come." The airlock cycled open, and they entered the dome. Inside, the temperature was warmer, but still cold by most standards. The Vrenkath who lived here were huddled in small groups, watching the newcomers with eyes that held no hope, only resignation. 3 elderly Vrenkath stood at the center of the dome. They were ancient, their carapaces cracked and faded, their limbs trembling with age. But Daewon could see in their posture that these had once been warriors, commanders, leaders. The one in the middle spoke. "I am Drakvor. I was Supreme Commander of the Vrenkath invasion fleet that attacked Earth. These are my 2 sub-commanders, Krelnak and Veshtal. We are the ones you have been hunting for 200 years. Sung Ho nodded slowly. "You are aware of why we are here?" "Ichu. Also Insa. Ichu are aware of why we are here. Ichu are aware of why we are here. Ichu are aware of why we are here. To make us pay for what we did," Drakvor said. "We are ready. We have been ready for a long time. Kill us, and be done with it." "We are not here to kill you," Ji-won said, stepping forward. "We are here to arrest you and bring you to trial for crimes against humanity." Drakvor actually laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "A trial? After 200 years? What is the point?" "The point," Ji-won said firmly, "is that 4.2 billion people died because of orders you gave. They deserve to have their deaths acknowledged. They deserve to have the truth told, and you deserve to answer for what you did." Krelnak, one of the sub-commanders, spoke up. His voice was weak with age. "We have lived with what we did for 2 centuries. Do you think we do not remember? Every day, every hour. We remember. We remember the cities burning. We remember the screams. We remember thinking we were invincible, that we could take what we wanted, and we remember being wrong," Veshtal added. "We thought we were conquering a weak species. We did not understand that we were waking something that would never stop. Never forgive. Never forget." Velmora stepped forward, her diplomatic instincts overriding her personal feelings. "If you feel remorse, if you acknowledge what you did, why did you run? Why not surrender decades ago?" Drakvor looked at her with ancient eyes. "Pride, fear, shame. Take your pick. We told ourselves that if we ran far enough, hid well enough, we could escape, but there is no escape from humans. They found us on ice worlds, desert planets, in asteroid fields, in nebulae. No matter where we went, eventually they would appear. We never fought back," Krelnak said. "We could have. We still had weapons, still had ships for many years, but we knew that if we killed even one human, they would exterminate us all. So we just ran, and ran, and ran. Until now," Sung Ho said. "Until now," Drakvor agreed. "We are too old to run anymore. Our people are tired. They want to settle, to have homes, to stop being afraid." He straightened up as much as his aged body allowed. "If our arrest and trial will end this, then we surrender. Willingly. We will testify about everything we did. We will face whatever justice you demand." Ji-won pulled out a datapad. "I am authorized by Earth to accept your surrender. You will be transported to Earth for trial. The proceedings will be public, and you will be given the opportunity to testify about the invasion. The Vrenkath people will be given safe passage to establish settlements wherever they choose, with full council protection. And what happens to us after the trial? Veshtal asked. That will be determined by the court, G1 replied. But I can tell you this. Earth's goal has never been revenge. It has been accountability. Once you have answered for your crimes, once the historical record is complete, once every victim has been acknowledged, then justice will have been served. Heejin, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. I have a question. 200 years ago, when you ordered the bombardment of Earth, did you think about the consequences? Did you consider that you might lose? Dragvor looked at her for a long time before answering. No. We had conquered 47 worlds. We had never lost a battle. We thought humans were just another species to be subjugated. We did not realize that some species, when pushed to the edge of extinction, become more dangerous than any military force. We learned that lesson, Krelnok said bitterly. We learned it when our soldiers started disappearing, when our ships began exploding, when we realized that humans were not fighting a war, they were conducting a hunt, and we were the prey. We learned it again when we fled, Veshtal continued. We thought escape meant safety. But humans do not fight, and then forget. They remember. They document. They track. For 200 years, you have followed us. Always watching, always waiting, always reminding us that our actions had consequences. Daewon felt a strange mix of emotions. Horror at the scale of humanity's pursuit. Understanding of why they had done it. Sadness for the 4 billion dead who would never see this moment of accountability. I have one more question, Velmora said quietly. During those 200 years, did any of you ever consider apologizing? The 3 Vrenkath commanders looked at each other. Every single day. But we did not know who to apologize to. The dead cannot hear us. The survivors despise us. What words could possibly address what we did? You could start with the truth, G1 said. At your trial, you can tell the galaxy exactly what happened, what you ordered, what you did, what you thought. You can make sure that no other species ever forgets what happens when you try to exterminate humanity. The arrest was conducted with quiet dignity. The 3 Vrenkath commanders were placed in secure custody aboard the Meridian. The remaining Vrenkath on the frozen world were given provisions and told that council ships would arrive to help them relocate wherever they wanted to go. As the Meridian prepared to return to Earth, Daewon found himself in the observation deck with Sung Ho. It is over, Daewon said. 200 years. And it is finally over. Yes, Sung Ho agreed. Operation Long Memory is complete. Every commander has been accounted for. The promise has been kept. Was it worth it? 200 years of pursuit, of tracking, of making sure an entire species could never forget? Sung Ho looked out at the stars. I do not know if worth is the right word, but it was necessary. Those 4 billion people who died, they cannot speak for themselves. Someone had to speak for them. Someone had to remember their names. Several months later, Daewon attended the public trial on Earth. It was broadcast across the entire galaxy. The 3 Vrenkath commanders testified for weeks, describing in detail the planning of the invasion, the execution of the bombardment, the orders they gave. But what struck Daewon most was not the testimony of the commanders. It was the memorial hall that Earth had built. It was a massive structure, circular in design, with walls that stretched up into the sky. On those walls were engraved the names of every single person who had died in the invasion. 4.2 billion names. Daewon tried to walk the entire circumference, reading names as he went. After 3 hours, he had barely made a dent. A human guide told him that it would take approximately 3 months of continuous walking to read every name. We wanted people to understand, the guide said. This is not just a number. 4.2 billion is not a statistic. Every single one of these names was a person. They had families, dreams, favorite foods, bad jokes they liked to tell. They were real. In the center of the memorial hall, there was a simple inscription. We went silent for 3 months, not because we were fighting, but because we were mourning. The trial concluded with all 3 commanders being found guilty. They were sentenced to life imprisonment, with the condition that they would continue to provide testimony for historical records. And true to Earth's word, the Vrenkath people were given safe passage. Council member species welcomed them, helped them establish new colonies, provided resources for rebuilding. After 200 years of flight, they finally found peace. On the day the last Vrenkath colony was established, G1 stood in the memorial hall. She placed her hand on the wall where her great-great-great-grandmother's name was engraved. "It is done," she whispered. "We kept our promise. We never forgot. We held them accountable. Now, finally, you can rest." Across Earth, and throughout human space, similar scenes played out. Members of the Remembrance gathered in groups, in homes, in memorial sites. They acknowledged that their task was complete. The pursuit was over. Justice had been served. And in the quiet of space, the galaxy learned a lesson that would echo for generations. Humanity could be kind, could be diplomatic, could be generous and forgiving, but if you attacked them, if you tried to exterminate them, if you killed billions of their people, they would remember, they would document, they would pursue, not with rage, not with hatred, but with cold, methodical, unstoppable determination. They would remember for as long as it took, forever, if necessary.